Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I'm back today with Arjun. So, Arjun is a CEO of Dr. Vaidya's, and then Forbes Under 30 for Business World 40 Under 40. And then he's a global shaper and a podcast host. So, thank you very much, Arjun. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Lakshit. Very excited for the conversation.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. First of all, again, thank you very much. And why don't you introduce yourself to people watching it or hearing it, and about yourself and about your work.
Sure. So, Lakshit, my name is Arjun Vaidya, and Vaidya, my last name means Ayurvedic doctor. I come from a legacy of 150 years of Ayurveda in my family. My grandfather, great grandfather were all Ayurvedic doctors. As a family, we own 100 plus proprietary Ayurvedic formulations passed down from generation to generation. But my family legacy was an Ayurvedic clinic. So my dada ran a clinic that his great grandfather ran, and in my grandfather's time, like more than 300 patients a day walked into this clinic. 12,000 patients a month wrote to him via post, but he didn't really care for sales, distribution, marketing, and building a brand. I myself, grew up with juvenile bronchitis. I suffered from asthma. My grandfather cured me of asthma after 14 years of treatment, and asthma, getting cured of asthma allowed me to start playing cricket. Um,
Okay.
I used to play cricket when I was young. There was too much dust on the cricket field, and so my grandfather allowed me to play cricket, and Ayurveda allowed me to play cricket, and so I went to the US, did my undergrad. I went to a place called Brown University. I saw natural organic products being repackaged, but I also saw yoga becoming a huge brand, right? And I thought to myself, yoga is now appealing, accessible to modern consumers. We need to do the same with Ayurveda. So
Mhm.
moved back to India in 2013. I worked 3 years in private equity at a fund called L Capital. And then in 2016, after my dada passed, I quit my job and I said, I'm going to start a brand that takes our family legacy, our family formulations, and repackages and rebrands to appeal to modern consumers. That was the premise behind Dr. Vedas and the thought process behind the brand, and that's how we started.
Okay. And how's everything going? It's like you start how as you said, it was just you wanted to take your grandfather's and your ancestors' legacy. So first, what were the challenges you saw before beginning it, and what were how did you deal with them personally?
Yeah, so Lakshit, I think it's a good question. There are a lot of challenges in building a brand in India, and there are a lot of challenges in the Ayurveda sector. So I'll talk about the Ayurveda sector first because it's a very interesting space, right? It's red hot now. Everyone's talking about Ayurveda. But if you go back 5, 6 years, nobody was talking about Ayurveda, right?
Yeah.
And so Ayurveda's history is one of being a sort of poor cousin of allopathy all through independent India, right? So if you look at sort of early 1900s, late 1800s, even after India was independent, because of the British influence on India, a lot of India and a lot of Indians sort of viewed allopathy as the main source of medical science, and so Ayurveda was kind of forgotten or given stepchild treatment. And this continued right all through the 60s, 70s, 80s. When my dada became famous, even then Ayurveda was not seen as mainstream. And then things started to change, right? 2014, government changed, Ministry of Ayush was created, health revolution came to India. People understood it's important to go back to your roots. Big FMCG companies were starting herbal lines like Colgate and Hindustan Lever. Patanjali revolution happened, and then all of a sudden, from 2014 to 2019 is what I call the renaissance of Ayurveda. Ayurveda was back, and was back with a bang. And all of you, including people like you, Lakshya, asking
Yeah.
questions about what Ayurveda, what are these products, how can I consume them, etc. All of that. So it's very very interesting time and very interesting sort of situation for Ayurveda, and that's when we sort of started because prior to 2014 it was very difficult to build an Ayurveda brand, and then building a consumer brand in India is also extremely challenging, and my podcast sort of talks about how to tap this opportunity of a billion plus consumers, but a very complex ecosystem, infrastructure, distribution, and how to leverage the power of online. And so the biggest challenge we had to overcome is we're entering an industry where there are giants who've been
Mhm.
around for 100 years, some of them,
Yeah.
who have huge customer trust, huge customer legacy. Um, and in all of this, right, how does a new brand um, establish itself? How does it get consumers to trust us? And how does it establish a niche for itself? And I think through the last 4 years that Dr. Vez has been in existence from 2016 to today, uh, that's the problem we've tried to solve, right? We've established ourselves as a new age Ayurveda brand, a new age Ayurvedic products brand. Um, repackaging Ayurveda to appeal to modern consumers. And we decided we'd do one thing right, and not do a little bit of everything. And so we said digital is our port of call. Digital is where we see a big opportunity. Digital is something which can be leveraged, and nobody has won that space. And so we took the mantle of saying, "Hey, we will be an online first or online only Ayurveda brand."
Mhm.
And today, Lakshit, you'll be hearing a lot of conversations about D2C brands, online only brands, and those are sort of very exciting brands to be a part of. But when I started in 2016, 2017, people thought we were crazy. So we're going to build an Ayurveda brand online only. But the premise made sense, right? If you're sitting in a Trichy or a Muzaffarnagar or Imphal or a Anantnag, how does the upstart startup Ayurveda brand connect to you? Distribution impossible, right? How is
Mhm.
my distribution going to reach Anantnag? How am I
Yeah.
going to get salesmen in Anantnag? And so through the power of digital and through sort of new age conversations, modern conversations, um, explaining Ayurveda through easy to understand content, we've been able to have more than 10 lakh people buy from our website over the last 4 years across 16,500 pin codes in this country. And that's really powerful, right? That's we've covered about 65 to 70% of the pin codes in India.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay, okay, great, great. And yeah, so before we get into more into your journey and about learning, I just want to ask this question: what is Ayurveda? We have this whole ideologies. There is a kind of perception. People, of course, Ramdev Baba has made himself a huge brand as himself, but there is some that kind of perception कि ये वो बाबा ढोंगी वाला है, and then these are Ayurveda is just ये वो. And now of course because of Corona people are more getting aware, and getting into Giloy and all those things, and getting into drinking kadas again. That awareness is coming back. But where do you think that Ayurveda, how do you think you as a brand, um, as an individual will be able to make people believe again in Ayurveda, and not remove that whole stereotypes from their mind that it's something Babas did or all that, and it's something that can appeal to people and tell that, see, it's something which India had, and it's something which India should keep with it to help itself.
Well, Lakshya, I think it's a very deep, difficult philosophical question you've asked me, but I'll try to answer it in a few parts, right? The first thing is, what is Ayurveda, right? So I'll give you a very simple definition of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the ancient Indian science of healing. It comes from two Sanskrit words, Ayu and Veda, loosely translating to the science of life. The first misconception of Ayurveda is just medicine. No, Ayurveda is not just medicine. Ayurveda is a way of life. It includes the food you eat, it includes your exercise, it includes how much you sleep, and it includes herb supplements and medicine. So Ayurveda is more than just medicine, right? It's not just a symptomatic way of healing. It's a preventive, long-term lifestyle. And so that's the
Yeah.
first important point to understand. Second interesting thing about Ayurveda is, look, think about COVID, right? Um, Ayurveda has been with us for 2,000, some say 5,000 years. COVID is December 19. It's been now, what, 13 months that COVID has been around.
Yeah.
But we're still going back to Giloy and Ashwagandha and Chavanprash. That's what we've had for like 2,000, 5,000 years, right? So that's the power of Ayurveda that stood the test of time, right? And so when people question, is it really worth it? Does it really work? Hey, it stood a much longer test than anything else in the world that we know has stood, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really sort of interesting when people ask me, does it really work? Is it relevant in today's society? But I think that's a question we're not asked anymore, right? With the Ayurveda Renaissance, as I call, of 2014 and 2019, and then the sort of inflection point of the Black Swan event, which is COVID, people now accept Ayurveda, right? The question is, how do you repackage Ayurveda to appeal to consumers in a modern format? And so that's what we really started to do at Dr. Vaidya's, right? We said Chavanprash is great, but Chavanprash is black, bitter, sticky, and inconvenient. Kids hate it.
Yeah.
So how can we get kids to like Chavanprash? And so we launched Chakash, which is the goodness of Chavanprash in a toffee form. So it has the goodness of one spoon of Chavanprash, but doesn't have the bitter, black, sticky, inconvenient format of the jam. And instead, it's a toffee. So kids love to have it. So that's really the conversation we're trying to have. We understand your problem. We understand what we have to offer. Now, can we be the bridge between what we have to offer and your problem? And that's the approach we've taken at Dr. Vaidya's. Rather than saying that Ayurveda is this age-old way and we cannot change, no, we can change, and we understand where you're coming from. So now we need to bridge the gap between you and Ayurveda, and that's really the conversation we're having at Dr. Vaidya's.
Mhm, mhm. And how do you break those stereotypes by telling that it's not babas and all, it's our science, it's our medicine thing, and how do you make that break the stereotypes?
So, Lakshit, I think the macro economy has broken those stereotypes for me, right? So there are people who still think, oh, it's just babas and it's just sort of age old, and my grandparents talk about. But that's a phenomenon largely urban India, right? So the top 5 cities of India will keep asking these questions, and a certain section of the population. But a very interesting stat that I saw is that 72% of Indian households consume at least one Ayurvedic product. And so basically, without us knowing, we're consuming one thing, right? Whether it's a constipation medicine, or it's a cough syrup, or it's a medicine for cold, or it's a hair oil, Ayurveda finds its way into your home, right? So fundamentally, we do believe in
Hmm.
Ayurveda. Now the question is, how do I make you want to consume Ayurveda instead of just having it enter your home? And how do I make you believe in the premise or the principle? And I think largely, right, consumers, if you see that 72%, now largely consumers are saying there is something of value in this, right? Now it has to appeal to me. It has to come in a format that makes sense to me, and it has to talk to me in a way I understand.
Hmm.
That's the real problem. The problem is not that people don't want Ayurveda, don't believe in Ayurveda, don't want to consume Ayurveda. That's not the problem. That problem is over. And if you think that's the problem, then that's a misconception, because that's a very small section of society.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
largely India is believing in Ayurveda, right? Largely India is. For globally, we have to sell a little bit more, and we have to sort of explain a little bit more. But in India, if they believe, if consumers believe, I have to make that. I'll give you the COVID example, right? So a lot of consumers came for ashwagandha and giloy and immunity and all of those things, right? So we had this opportunity for immunity, and we said, hey, if we have this opportunity for immunity, how do we now leverage this opportunity for immunity and get customers to believe in Ayurveda in general, right? So if you come for immunity, if your mom has diabetes, how do I sell you an Ayurveda for that as well? And so that's really the problem we're tackling, not the first problem anymore.
Okay, okay, okay. And how were the initial initial days when you started Vedyas? What kind of things did you saw, and how did you like? What were the problems again as in the initial days of the company?
So Lakshit, it is a challenge, and it is a big task to build a consumer products brand, because if you look at consumer products as opposed to B2B SaaS or something, if you don't have 100,000 customers in India, it's not a business, it's a hobby, right? Because you're selling products for 150, 200, 300 rupees. So the economics don't stack up if you don't have a real serious number of customers. Um, and if you need a serious number of customers, you need to really build a credible brand. And initially, everybody's doubting a 25-year-old kid trying to sell them Ayurvedic medicine, right? Because Ayurveda is categorized by age old, sort of
Yeah, yeah.
research, long term, big, large brands. And so that was really a challenge, like facing failure every day, having people not taking me seriously, asking me where my boss is, where the owner of the company is, where the real CEO is. That was a challenge. But I think at that time, going through those things, going through those failures, being written off, all of those things help you build thick skin, help you sort of build grit and build resilience. And that eventually gets you to sort of being able to turn failure into success, turn problems into opportunities. And in a startup, I think that's the most critical part, right? It's to accept failure, to understand that you're going to deal with failure, and to deal with that failure in the right way and convert it into an opportunity and take it positively. And I think it's a challenge. It's not easy. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. I don't take failure seriously. I mean, I don't take failure well even today, but I've gotten much better at it over the last 4 years, right? And so I think that for me, that was the biggest learning is how do you take failure? How do you encounter failure with grit, resilience, thick skin, and get back on your feet the next day and fight even harder.
Okay, okay. And you were saying one thing that people didn't take you seriously and those such things. And yeah, so this the question I'm going to ask you is how did you learn about about Ayurveda, about what kind of medicines are right for what, and who helped you to understand more about the medicines and what's right and what's wrong.
So Lakshit, actually, it's in my family, right? It's in my last name. It's 150 years of family legacy. It's in my
Yeah.
blood. I've grown up with Ayurveda. I'm cured asthma using Ayurveda. I used to spend a lot of time with my grandfather growing up. I am the grandkid who transcribed the family formulations from our ancient Gujarati and Sanskrit scriptures onto the computer. So I grew up with it, right? I had a head start over other people to grow up with the science and to be a part of the person I am. But I'll tell you an interesting story, right? Because we were talking about failure and all of that, right? So when I started the company, I would say reasonably young, right? I was 25 years old. And I remember people not taking me seriously, right? And there's two ways to view that, right? The first way to view that is, okay, people aren't taking me seriously. What do I do? I can't do anything. I'm over. It's over. Game over. Ho gaya. The other thing I said is, look, people don't take me seriously because maybe they think I'm too young. How can I look older? So I would just not shave when I went into meetings. I would just not shave, right? And you know, there's two ways to take it. There's a positive and a negative way. And if you take it the positive way and you say, okay, this is my predicament, this is my problem, I have to face it and deal with it. I have to run with it, right? And it reminds me of I'm a huge cricket fan, right? And there was one series in Australia, a test series where Sachin was getting out playing the cover drive. Right, Sachin is known for one of the best straight and cover drives, right? But what was happening was the ball was coming outside Sachin's off stump, and he was playing the expansive drive and edging it and getting caught in the slips. So
Mhm.
there was one innings that Sachin played, and most cricket fans will never forget that innings, where he did not play a single cover drive or straight drive. He just left the ball outside the off stump. So completely anti his personality, completely anti the way he thought, but he was able to do it because it worked, and it was something that he had to overcome and get over, right? And similarly with entrepreneurship, I think you face these challenges and these problems. Sachin could say, "Hey, that's the way I play, right? There's a ball outside off stump and I see it, I'm going to hit it. And if I get out, I get out. It's not a big deal." But he said, no, I have to score runs and I have to score runs. And if it means the cover drive is not working for me this time, I'm not going to pay the cover drive. And I remember watching that innings where Sachin literally every ball outside off stump, he didn't touch it. He just did not. That was amazing.
Okay, okay. And so cricket inspires you to, it helps you to learn and know about your failures and mistakes, right? That's your inspiration.
I'm a huge sports fan. I'm a huge sports fan. I play a lot of sport as well. So I'm a runner. I run half marathons. I'm a squash player. I play a lot of squash. I love cricket. I play cricket. I play football. Sports have a big influence in my life, and I watch a lot of sports as well, right? So I think I learn a lot about mentality, about personality, about approach to life from sport, right? And just watched an amazing sports documentary over the weekend on Tiger Woods. He's probably one of the best golfers who's ever played golf, but through his career, because of the persona he is, the larger than life person he is, the mental stress that he had to go through, the failures he faced in his personal life, in his marriage, with antidepressants, all of that, and still coming over that and having that winning mentality is absolutely amazing. Amazing. And so I keep learning from sportsmen. I keep learning their mentality, because the mentality of a winner sportsman is the mentality an entrepreneur should have.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And in the like when you had those like bad reviews when customer says, "Ki Arjun, it's not that great," or "We didn't like the taste," or "It didn't help us," there was no difference even after taking that. How did you deal with that, and how did you try to find solution for it?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. And there's, again, only two ways to deal with that, right? Positively or negatively. So if you take it negatively, you're like, oh my God, my product is not working. What do I do? But the way we did it is I did customer service myself. When a customer is not happy, I would pick up the phone myself and talk to the customer why they weren't happy, explain to them the product, understand the mistake. Our top selling product today is a product called Herbo Build. It's a muscle gain supplement. It came to us through consumer insights. Customers said, please launch a product like this. We we want to gain muscle, but we're scared of whey protein because it has chemicals in it. Can you launch an Ayurvedic muscle gain supplement without any chemicals? And so that product now sells 2,000 units a day on our website, and it was launched through customer insights and customer service, right? So taking the right approach, understanding the customer, if there's an angry customer or unhappy customer, picking up the phone as the CEO of the company myself and saying, hey, I'm sorry, maybe we didn't do well enough. Tell us how we can get better. That's really the approach that we like to take. And my wife, who's the CEO, and I have done customer service a lot ourselves. We understand the customer's needs, the customer's predicaments, the customer's problems, and we try to get better every day, from these problems and understanding these problems.
Okay, okay. And how what challenges did do you see that could come, or yeah, this challenges thing is of course there. And also, how do you think you're going to try to evolve your company now, how and why you must try to evolve by the moving time, and things like that. Yeah.
So Lakshit, I'm not someone who likes to look into the hourglass and say, okay, where do I see myself 5 years? Where do I see
Uh-huh.
myself 10 years from now? Because as an entrepreneur who's done it from zero, you're very operational minded. So I like to view the next 1 year or the next sort of 100 days. But I'll take you back to our company's history, right? We started with 4 people, everyone, then we went to 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, and 20 people, basically everyone can talk to each other, right? You're in the same space largely. You can just yell someone's name and be able to speak to them and interact with everyone every day. And now we're 150 people. And with that, there's a lot of change in the organization, right? So I think the biggest evolution an entrepreneur needs to do, and the toughest evolution an entrepreneur needs to sort of change an entrepreneur needs to make is don't do everything yourself. You can't do everything yourself. You want to, because in the early days you did, and that's how the company grew, but eventually it's not scalable, right? So don't read every piece of content yourself, don't write every post yourself, don't look at every creative yourself, because when there are 500 creatives or 800 creatives a month, you can't do it all yourself, right? It's not
Yeah.
possible. And so that's one big evolution that our company had to undergo, where I had to start letting go. I had to start trusting people. I had to hire smarter people than me and say, hey, you're better than me at this. You tell me what you think, instead of spoon feeding everyone and doing it myself, because that's the instinct of an entrepreneur, right? अच्छा आप नहीं कर रहे हो मैं कर लूंगा ठीक है I'll stay up till 2 in the morning, what's the big deal for me, but that's not scalable, and I've heard so many successful entrepreneurs say that's not scalable. So I think that's one huge evolution that you have to make. And the second one is obviously hiring smarter people than yourself or hiring a really strong team. But I think letting go and building an organization to scale is critical. And I hear a lot of what Reid Hoffman says, right, with his blitzscaling sort of podcast and his writings on blitzscaling. You need to build that culture to scale, and you can't do it just yourself.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, okay. And will Vedyas be a company which which is going to be online, or do you have some plans moving to shops and having physical stores?
No, we will do offline, and we're planning to do it this year. By sort of beginning of the financial year, you will see the brand available offline, and you'll see the brand sort of pushing through. But I think online is still at the core and the ethos of the brand, and that will continue to stay as part of the DNA of the brand. Right, we're still a digital first company, but I think with the evolution of the brand, with sort of expansion, etc., we will be offline. But online still stays core to the ethos.
Okay, okay. And this question I just wanted to ask you from the start of the podcast is, as you said, it's an ancestor company and it's your grandfathers who had it. And today, when your father or your grandfather sees you, creating such a wonderful company, which they had started as your grandfathers has started, what they do feel about this, and how do they react when?
My grandfather is actually not here with us anymore. He passed away, but to see my grandmother proud of what we do, that was really exciting. I remember when I decided to quit my job in private equity and take this company on, um, she thought I was like crazy, right? She was like, "You're leaving a comfortable, high-paying, really prestigious job to start something you have no idea about, right? FMCG consumer products." But when we won an award, Jeff Bezos came to India in Jan last year, and he gave Dr. Vaidya's Youth SMB of the Year and me Youth Entrepreneur of the Year. And I came back with the award to my grandmom, and she saw it in the newspaper and all of that. And she was like, "I'm so proud of what you built, and your grandfather will be proud." I think awards and all of those things are fine, but this is the real achievement, right? To see the person whose legacy I'm taking forward say, "Hey, he would be proud wherever he is, and he'd be happy."
Yeah, yeah. And this what would be advice to anybody who wishes to understand more and learn more about Ayurveda, and who wishes to understand how to use it, wishes to understand what is right and what's wrong and all those things? What would be advice to them?
Yeah, so I have a simple one piece of advice: come with an open mind to Ayurveda. It has a lot to offer, and use the internet, use the available resources. Read about Ayurveda online platforms like ours. We have a lot of content available on Instagram, on our blog, but also brands like ours give a consultation for free. So you just book an appointment and talk to an Ayurvedic doctor for free and ask all your queries there. Ayurvedic doctors are generally sort of much used to having longer conversations. So open up, use the resources, and have a conversation.
Okay, okay. And the last question: what would be your advice to anybody who's watching this, or anybody who wishes to create an own business empire and wishes to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I think that look, entrepreneurship is in our blood as Indians, and I'm so excited to see a new crop of startups. I mentor a bunch of startups, and I'm always happy to chat with startup entrepreneurs and guide them because I was guided very well by my mentors, and I think mentorship is really important. I think three pieces of advice I would give you, right? The first is you cannot be half in. See a lot of people who say, I've not left my job yet. I'm still going to stay in my job. When this thing picks up, then I will do it. That's not entrepreneurship. You're either in or you're out, and it's okay to be out. It's okay to say it's not for me, but if you're in, you're in, right? So don't be slightly pregnant. There's nothing like slightly pregnant. That's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. Be ready for the ups and downs of emotion, but fight with grit and resilience, right? Don't give up too easily. That's the second piece of advice. And the third piece of advice is, and this is something that the country head of India for Amazon said, and I truly resonate by it. He said, be very rigid about your goal, but be flexible about your path to your goal, which means if you're at the bottom of a mountain, you're trying to summit the mountain, you know you want to summit the mountain. The mountain summit is your goal. So don't just pivot for the sake of pivoting and move from one mountain to another. Like I'm trying to climb Everest and then Everest nahi ho raha hai, to main Kanchenjunga pe jaunga. Kanchenjunga is not happening, I'll go to the Western Ghats. No. You have to climb Everest, you have to climb Everest. But if this path has an avalanche, it's okay to move to the next path or the next path. But you still have to scale Everest, right? So these are the three pieces of advice if I had to give entrepreneurs I would give. And I'm really excited to see many more amazing startups come out of India because it's the future and we have so much to offer.
Okay. So again, Arjun, thank you very much for joining in. It was a wonderful conversation, and I'm really grateful that you joined me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lakshit. It's been a pleasure.